right, so we're gonna go on and start the meeting. We'll call the meeting to order at 8:37. 8:37 a.m. Can we have roll call, please?
Absolutely. Chair Cheryl Brown,
Present.
Vice Chair Jimmy Paver,
Present.
Commissioner Wilmer Roberts,
Here.
Commissioner Jan Wenig.
All right, we have a quorum. Do we have anyone on the agenda to speak to the board today?
Yes, we have one, which is on the speak.
Okay.
What I do want to do is just go up to the front. Just the front table,
Where do I
just
need
at the end of the front table.
in the front
Yeah.
table here?
Yeah. Okay.
And each person has 2 minutes.
Good morning, board.
Okay.
My name is Robert Onions. For those that do not know me, I'm a former employee of the Housing Authority and also Strategic Housing. And I'm here today to ask the board to ask staff and or the personnel director to explain to you why benefits upon release were not paid out according to the personnel policy as established and approved by the board. Specifically, I wanted to address sick leave 5.5F within the personnel policy. And within the personnel policy, it says the max payout for sick leave is 240 hours. When I was released in September the 11th of 2022, I had over 600 hours of sick leave. Now, according to the policy, I'm only entitled to 240. When I finally got my paycheck and got the detail of what was listed under the various benefits, vacation, accrued, etc., I received only 120 hours. So that took some time in order to get that information, just because computers and passwords that were sent to my previous email, etc. When I asked the personnel director why I was not paid 240 as per the personnel policy, said, well, no, we only pay 120. And I said, that's not what the personnel policy says. Well, that's what we have done in the past. And that's, although that's certainly unfortunate for me, it certainly is unfortunate for previous employees. And I think there's probably other employees here within the room that would like to know if their benefits are going to be paid per the personnel policy. And I was not paid that amount. And that's what I was told. Unfortunately, because I haven't been paid that, I had to seek whatever remedies were available to me. And I know you probably can't comment, but I have a claim in small claims court for that amount. But, if this is just a giant misunderstanding, I certainly understand that. I'm just looking for my money. $89.50, $8,950 is what I'm due. I didn't get paid that. That's all I'm looking for. I just assume get that and go away and, have a nice life. And I thought that would be important to bring that to the board because this remains unresolved. And the only way that y'all would know about it is me bringing it to your attention.
And can you cite again, what
Provision?
provision?
Yes, it is 5.5 of the personnel policy under sick leave F. And, it is clear and unambiguous as to there's not an interpretation to it. It says what it says. And again, I just assume resolve it in a very nice way. I'm just looking for my money and like I said, I'll have a nice life.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
That's it.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 3 on the agenda. Public hearing regarding resolution HATC 2023-4.
Yes, and so as you all know, this project came forward previously, and essentially what happened is it says that legislation says that the housing authority, which is the parent organization, actually needs to go ahead and conduct an approval. So as with the case with the previous project last month, we are going back in and correcting those. So in the future, when there's a project that comes before the facilities corporation, it'll also come before the housing authority as well. So this is essentially similar to that, whereby the project was previously approved, but in looking back at the legislation, it says that we need to also have the parent agency to approve the project.
Any questions from anyone on the board? Thank you. Moving on to item number 4.
So we have, I'm sorry, we went through item, which item was that?
We move to number 4.
We don't need any action on item 3. No.
No, I think it's coming later.
Right, yeah, so I'm sorry, I was describing what was going to come later on, so I just wanted to understand that. Okay.
I understand. So item number 4 on the agenda, group discussion, setting expectations. So I think this is where we were going to pick up from where we left off when we were doing the strategic plan back in February, maybe. And so I'm going to turn it over to.
I'll take it here from here. So yes, that is correct. So as you recall, at the board retreat in February, we had gotten through the first 2 of the total of 4 strategic plan priorities from the 2022-2025 plan, and had thorough discussion on the first 2. And the idea here is just to pick that up now in the time that we have this morning and discuss the other 2. And so I've prepared a sort of a discussion guide here. You can see it on the screen, where we can break this down, and this can go any direction you guys want it to, kind of like the board retreat discussion. And Patrick, jump in anywhere you want here too as we go through this, but we got through the first 2. The third one is resource development, and then we also need to talk about organizational development. So this is a summary of what was in the strategic plan, or what is in the strategic plan, the metrics that we had identified in the strategic plan, and then the next page, I'll get to that in a second, would be the results. So you can see here, come back.
I'm sorry.
Again, this was embedded into the plan. Focus areas in no particular order: pursuit and winning of grant funding, community partnerships, financial stewardship, with the specific goals. I won't read everything to you. And then the metrics that were identified when the plan was put together. Go ahead and look at the next one. And so these are in the interest of bringing you up to speed on some of this has already been discussed to some degree in the past, but these are the results from 2022. So the metric being minimum 10% year-on-year increase in funding as compared to baseline. And with regard to the foundation, the HATC Foundation, we did participate in the Amplify Austin fundraising. So there were some results there, considering we didn't raise much money the year before. anything would meet that, would go to meeting that metric. Establishing relationships with 2 new partners each year was in the plan. We've already exceeded the goal. We've actually have 10 new partnerships. And when I say partnerships, there's a broad definition there. These are organizations that that know about us, we know about them. They know that we may call on them for their resources for supportive services. But it was a pretty big jump over 2021. Each employee will have individual accountability and effectiveness metrics depending on department position. We did implement a new performance management tool that's supposed to capture that kind of stuff.
So how much did we get from Amplify Austin this year?
I think the total approximately with the matching that we got was around $1,500.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a huge amount of money, but we don't do any fundraising typically, so I believe that was it. Super can probably confirm, but I'm not even sure we've got the last payment on that yet. The next one. And I know this is very difficult to read, but this just shows our partnership matrix with the foundation, broken down by the 3 different focus areas of the foundation: self-sufficiency, youth development, family enrichment. I will add that as was discussed in the board retreat, we're looking at we're very close to a plan to change how we do things at the foundation to make it much more impactful through a broad umbrella partnership with a local organization. And we can talk about that later, but this is where we are now. Go next one. So I don't know, however you guys want to do this. So that was resource development with the goals, metrics, focus areas, etc. The next one being organizational development. Did you want to?
Let's go back to,
Okay.
to the other one. I want to, before we move to number 4. Are there any comments, any questions or anything that anybody on the board want to make mention of regarding resource development?
I just want to make note of a couple of things related to grant funding and more broad interpretation of grants. HUD each year in the current administration has been expanding the number of vouchers. As you know, they created EHV, which is a brand new program. That program we really didn't have to apply for per se. In some cases, we do have to give submit a LOI in some cases, right?
Correct.
So we will continue to seek out those opportunities for additional grants through HUD that are available to us if we meet the criteria. So as it relates to grant funding, and just in a general broad sense, we will continue to do that, as opportunity exists, opportunity, presents itself. So I just want to make mention of that. We continue to seek out funding each year with COC. Obviously, but each year we do have to apply, and we do. So as it relates to, generally speaking, in terms of grants, those HUD grants, we will continue to seek out those opportunities. When the NOPAs come through, we do review all those to see if there's opportunities that are available. Case in point, we applied for the FSS grant, weren't successful. We did make the initial criteria, but we weren't selected. But we will continue to seek those out when the opportunity presents itself.
So,
No, I appreciate that. In the original strategic plan, there's like a whole column of metrics, and I don't know if you have it in front of you, Mr. Howard, but if there's any of those that jump off the page in terms of Providence reports, there's a couple in there. Developing criteria and objective process for awarding funds for people affordable things. I don't know if you have them in front of you, if there's anything that jumps off, but we could discuss as a board in terms of other.
Stephen, I mean, we haven't, only because those we haven't had the opportunity to work on anything specifically, at least the last year, that's come before us that warranted such. I mean, we have collected, basic criteria based on the grant specific, but we hadn't really had the opportunity to develop specific, those general criteria, even just narrowing in on whichever grant, that's become, that we saw that we had an opportunity or we were eligible. So, but we certainly could, I mean, as far as that part's concerned. And we do, seek those out, but it hasn't been a situation where we needed to actually develop those per se, only because of what we've seen come through in terms of from the primarily the federal government, which is where most of the grants go.
Not to dwell on this, but maybe at a further time, I can just discuss page 26 of the strategic plan, because this is what area of interest to me, but for instance, developing a menu of mechanisms to support affordable units, specifically to include deeply affordable units. What did that reference? And if you get concrete with me, like.
Right, so. Yes, so what we've been talking about is essentially what the board has approved as a policy for deeply affordable units. Of course, we talked about the idea that was what we collectively as a board and staff have come up with. Is to set aside the TCFC set aside, and the idea that we continue to evolve that as a goal. Obviously, that's, we've been brainstorming what that might look like, and hopefully we'll come up with some ideas this year as it relates to that. We even so yes, that is primarily what was envisioned when we talked about the deeply affordable units, in terms of what we potentially could see in terms of a possibility for seeing that happen.
And then what about the one thing I was looking at is on this particular matrix, we said a minimum of 10% year-on-year increase. Have we really seen that, Steve?
No,
We have.
well, at least
It's
as it applies to the foundation for funding. I mean, it really, and I can only speak for the foundation. I don't know, Patrick, if there's another area subject to funding that we can talk about here.
Yeah, because we're talking about here, there's nothing specifically in the strategic plan that says a foundation. It's a grant funding, community partnership, financial stewardship. So I'm just wondering, if we take a look at each of those.
And that's a good point. That's a good point. It should speak to all of our opportunity to raise funds, from affordable housing development, what we raise proceeds wise, to the foundation, to any other opportunity we have to increase grant funding. So you are correct. We should be looking at all three of those and report back to you how we're doing in all those areas. So we need to do that, and we can. So that is a good point that you raised, that we need to look at it in the global set of context, because it wasn't really specific to just the foundation.
Is that what you're referring to, the SFS?
Well, FSS was specifically foundation supported services centric because of, the nature of what it is. The family self-sufficiency program that typically most housing authorities utilize as a foundation for its supportive services thrust, and then it gives you the opportunity to get the Ross grant, the Jobs Plus grant.
Exactly.
But of course, you have to be qualified for the FSF first to even pursue those others. So that is one of many that we need to work on. So, but you are correct in saying that we need to point out all those opportunities for funding and how we made the changes that we made in terms of increases. So we will need to get that back to you.
And part of that also was the fact that, we had been drained at HATC with regards to funding there. And so it I think the decision was not to make a commitment to the organization because of the financial strain.
One last question, another bullet point, page 26, I haven't heard conversation about, and maybe it's coming in the rest of the year. Determine the feasibility of purchasing a parcel of land, offering it as an RFP to increase the housing stock for persons experiencing homelessness.
Correct. So that was an idea that the previous board had. It still needs to be materialized, quite frankly. So I think what we probably need to do is take that up as an item for real estate committee to explore how likely that was. But that was something that was pointed out that it was a possibility. But that's probably as far as it got. So it would be something that I would need to explore with the real estate committee, the feasibility of it, and how if we want to place criteria on it. Because the other additional thought that was there was that we potentially could work with a nonprofit working in a neighborhood as opposed to maybe us identifying the parcel, that we would maybe work through a nonprofit like a Guadalupe Development Corporation or someone like that who actually has ties with a neighborhood who has a plan and could potentially work through the guys of one of those who have neighborhood roots versus us, going out and identifying a parcel. And then actually align that with the city's plan as well for homelessness and that sort of thing. So it needs to be aligned, whatever we do, but that is something we need to take up as follow through with that. We started that process last year. But the chair at the time, Christina, she left. And we hadn't moved forward on that.
So maybe there's other ones like this, for updating and see if they're active, or maybe ideas that have run their course. And I just wondered if in this category, that was one of the 7-part alliance that were part of the SAFE and other. I haven't heard much here, but I've heard it because I also volunteer with SAFE.
Yeah,
And I wondered where that fit in here, and because I'm sitting on this board, I haven't heard about that. It's a really exciting project.
yeah, we haven't officially participated in that contact with them. But that's certainly a possibility to look into.
Oh, I thought you were named. That's what caught me by surprise.
Oh, really? No.
Okay, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments on priority 3? Okay. Move on to.
Okay, so strategic plan priority number 4 is organizational development, with the focus areas of this component being staff performance, professionalism, competence, and accountability, maximizing and leveraging technology, organizational best practices, and then marketing, PR, and communications. The goals here, kind of common sense, but employ a high-performing, professional, competent, and accountable staff at HATC. Leverage technology to increase total effectiveness of all internal functions, identify and implement industry best practices within functional areas, and then enhance and maximize our marketing, PR, and external communication, impacting particulars related to residents, prospective residents, program participants, partners, prospective partners, and community at large. So the metrics here, you'll see this also in the plan. Relate to employee engagement, turnover, retention, demographic CEO, job offer acceptance, employee performance, and also some paper reduction. We're trying to digitize. We had sort of a TBD metric change on employee compliance, which could be tied to performance evaluations, and then TBD on the time used more efficiently, because those are kind of hard to measure. But, in all of these, it's sort of difficult sometimes to apply metrics in a fast changing organization, things like job offer acceptance rate, the market's changing. So I understand why it was created this way. And some of the development of the plan predates me, but I do understand where this came from. Can you go to the next one? If we look at Here's more metrics here. TBD percentage employees able to work remotely, superior results in functional areas will be said determined as compared to baseline. Again, baseline sometimes is hard to identify, but you got to start there. External recognition of our best practices from industry associations, increase in social media engagement by 20%, present HATC's story at 3 community events per year. So if we look at these metrics and talk about our results from 2022, employee engagement, we believe we've had positive results there through training, organizational programs that we've had here. And it goes beyond that, but attempts at staff engagement, turnover retention rate, our turnover rates calculated for 2022 at 20%. On average, any organization across industry is going to experience approximately 18% turnover. So we're in line there as far as expected turnover stats. Demographic CEO, I'll show you a chart in just a second on that. Our job acceptance rate's been 100%. Of course, we're a small organization. We don't offer a lot of jobs because there aren't necessarily a lot of jobs that come open. That was in 2022. I mentioned the new performance management tool that we implemented last year. The hard copy file storage being reduced by certain percentages. It is an ongoing process. This is something we need a baseline on. We have a lot of paper here, and depending on the specific area of responsibility and function here, the baseline may look differently. In HR, everything's going to be digital pretty soon. I'm sure finance is probably the same way, but each area is going to be looked at a little differently. HCV group, I know they have lots of paper. I don't know if you guys would agree though, that that's something you're trying to get away from. So there's that. The employee compliance, that's a broad term too. So again, it's sort of a TBD scenario there. The compliance training, can you go to the next one? It is ongoing. The ongoing process on time used more effectively, again, coming up with a baseline. Being able to work remotely, we actually do have a newer policy in place regarding remote work and how it's authorized, and being authorized and available as feasible. So we do have people that do work remotely, and so, but not everybody can, or it's appropriate for that. Industry best practices, again, establishing that baseline. So, these metrics are, when they were set, they're a little too broad, I would say, but at least we have awareness that these are needing our attention. Increase in social media engagement, though, we did launch our HATC Foundation LinkedIn account. We have ongoing social media efforts to build follower counts and engagement. And every week we've got new followers on LinkedIn. I see that the stats come in on that. So that extends our awareness into the broader business community at least. Presenting HAT story at 3 community events per year. Well, that is going to be achieved in 2023 with our HATC and the community events that are happening now. So we're definitely able to make that happen. I mentioned demographics. So this is our staff composition as of March.
Before you go to that, let's go back to the other 2 results. I just want to open it up before you move on to your pie chart to see if there are any comments or anything any of the board members would want to say.
I'm curious what the community events are and where they're slated,
Yeah, you should be getting emails on that. You haven't gotten any emails? Okay.
There, okay,
Do you have some scheduled or?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Madeline?
Sure.
Oh,
So the idea. I came from me, the idea was to understand our population and understand some of their needs, but to celebrate along with the community, things that are good, successes, victories, but also understand that there's still struggles and challenges that face our population. So we started off, so the thought was, what are the ones that are typically celebrated that we know about in the community? And so we identified 5. Black History Month was the first one, and then Women's History Month was the second. Disabilities Awareness Month is the third. Hispanic Heritage Month is the fourth, and
Mental health.
mental health, I'm sorry, I skipped mental health. Mental health was the third, actually. Sorry. And that's coinciding with the national acknowledgement of that month. And so the goal is to identify speakers in the community who could share about those issues and how it affects, our populations that we serve, in addition to the broader community. So that was our goal. The idea to reach out, to develop more partnerships in the community, and also to understand there's an awareness. Our goal is to try to take that to the community, and do some more celebrating. So we're kind of feeling our way through how we might best be able to engage the residents in some of those activities. So toward the end of the year, we're talking about doing a festival, and doing food and things like that to celebrate some of what we are experiencing, what we want to sort of identify as such. So that was the goal, and that is the goal. And so we've had 2 events already, and we have 3 more.
I can double check the list again. But I'll make sure that that happens going forward. I'll ask for confirmation just so that I have that.
Is the general concept that you're creating the event and inviting the other people, or we're adding to a panel of already existing community?
No, we've identified our very own, and we partner with the library, who's been a partner with the foundation. Yeah, so we partner with the library.
Oh, that's a good, no, what Pat was talking about is, excuse me, Mr. Howard is talking about is activities, events that we're creating ourselves. So this wasn't tied to any other organization. So like I said, we've had 2 so far, but we need to make sure
That everyone
that
hears.
all the board members are receiving the invitations and have visibility, make sure that they are invited. I don't know, if they're not, but the 2 that we've had have been really, really good. And hopefully the next one, you all will be able to attend. So I think one of the objectives that I like that the staff is doing is it's not just one location. They're finding libraries throughout the city and inviting people in the community too. And I think that one of the things that we could probably do is increase the advertising a little bit more, maybe in the libraries, like we already know what the next event is going to be. Maybe a month and a half before, we could start putting posters up or flyers up in the library itself to invite the community, as well as I know that we've invited some of the other organizations that we partner with, invite them to attend. So we can definitely do that, and perhaps even at some of the complexes that, where we have our fingerprint, that we can actually start sharing, this is what we're doing, especially if it's nearby, nearby the library or whatever. But the last 2 have been really, really good. I've enjoyed both.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so we're really looking forward to the others that we have just coming up this year.
And then the other thought that I had here, Steve, is on the employee engagement.
Mhm.
I know, that there's been training and development type things, but have you done any like surveys of the staff to get feedback on what, how they see the training? Do they see it as something that's valuable? Do they have any ideas or suggestions? I think that would help in terms of, coming up with
Sure.
measurements and ideas, so you can establish, this is the baseline of what we've done so far. It's effective, it's not effective, or whatever, just
Right.
so, you just kind of have a stake in the ground of, this is the feedback that we're getting, and that they see, the
Yeah.
staff sees that this is something that's valuable and not just just an
Checking a
act
box,
of,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
just checking a box.
Yeah, and yes and no. So yes, in that I do it as part of the professional development activity I do in individual conversations with people. And I record all that. A lot of that drills down a little more to specific roles as opposed to more broadly. But we're small enough to where we can get that information pretty informally just through conversations. But there's always room for improvement there. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I know, like last year, I know that there was some specific training sessions that you had, and so my suggestion would be, anything that happens this year
Mhm.
that you do collectively as an organization, just have a survey after it's done.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that's
collect that.
absolutely.
and Pull it together, and then, that kind of sets
Mhm.
at least give you a baseline of what's happening with what you're doing, and kind of a record of what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that recently, because we had some external training that had mixed reviews, and my me being one of the ones that were mixed. So, and they had a survey. And if people were honest on the survey, they probably felt the gravity of what some may have felt like wasn't like the best delivery.
And that's okay.
No, and it is good, it is okay, and so it prompted us to realize that we needed to do that ourselves, and it is, so, yes, TML provided some training to us recently. So, yes, we are gonna be doing that, make sure that we are not assuming, making assumptions and getting real feedback.
Yeah, and as essential as the nature of the feedback is itself, in this case, it's for quality improvement, which is awesome. As Ms. Brown was saying, it's also a matter of employee engagement, which is the measure of one, and just letting everybody know we want to know how it went.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you encourage supervisors to do performance counseling sessions?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And getting feedback. and
Yeah.
Setting goals for that
Yeah.
individual.
And the new tool we're using actually is set up to do that, not just on an annual review. It's set up to do it anytime. You do it quarterly, whatever's appropriate. It's flexible that way. And, I'm here as a resource if they need help. And so, yes, to answer your question.
Just a quick question on the turnover retention rate, and I do know that there was for currently, not 2022,
Mhm.
as we are now in April. There was an offer made for a social worker that was then declined, right? This year, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah, so this year, yes.
Wait a minute. So, and then we were trying to get together for foundation stuff, and you were in the middle of onboarding, because that, I just am curious.
Yeah,
Did you feel it?
we brought on a very good social worker. At least I think she's so far, she's great.
That's
Yeah, and she just started Monday, and her name's Olivia Nichols, and I think she's You know, she had incredibly good references, and she's a good addition to the team. Yeah, so. And this market is very strange for recruiting. And so, you know, we've had people just ghost us and not get back with us. So we feel fortunate to have her. So,
Yeah, but I mean, your 100% is for 2022.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Good. Just wanted to point that out. Okay, any other comments on the results? All right, let's go to your.
Yeah. First. Here we go. So I mentioned earlier about, diversity and EEO being one of our metrics and rolls up under a goal. This is our representation here as far as race and national origin and gender. So for a small organization, you can see we're pretty diverse. Can you go to the next one? And this breaks it down just by race or national origin. And you compare that, and the most recent data I had for Austin was 2019. We are much more diverse than the community in regards just to that. So EEO wise, I'm not at all concerned here. And there are a lot of other ways to break down diversity. But, this is sort of the top of mind thing for a lot of people. But in terms of race, national origin, and gender, I think we're in very good shape there. So as far as a goal, we might explore having a goal for disabled employees or for, other protected classes. And there's always room to improve there. So. And that is all I have to show you. But again, this kind of goes back to you guys with however you want to take this, if you want to continue discussing in the time you have left.
There anything else you guys want to cover? Well, I think that covers all of the topics that we had. These were the last two that we couldn't get through when we did the retreat, and I just wanted to close that and close this out to make sure that we at least take a look at strategically what we have. And the overall objective for going through this is to look at establishing, matrices for what we want to achieve or what we want to measure the team on and Mr. Howard on by the end of 2025. That's it. So Steve, do you want to cover any takeaways from this that we discussed?
Well, we will, on our end, continue to work on sort of fine tuning the metrics. Again, these are pretty broad and they maybe shouldn't be. And so, Patrick and I, especially, will have continued conversations on this and we'll let you know. And anything that you would like to continue to add, please let us know. But we'll keep you updated on our thoughts, kind of tailoring this a little closer to, what's going to get us to the next level. So,
and I think at some point we'll come back and we talk about just from the resource development perspective, just pointing out all the funding sources. And,
yes, ma'am. I put that as a due out. That we need to provide you to expand on our explanation of the resources and funding, and we can do that in short order. The other thing that became evidently clear is we need to speak with the real estate committee to flush out some of what we had identified as some of the potential goals to try to figure out what our next step should be as an organization, or how we maybe want to modify or tweak what we might have said. But I know that there are some external resources that will help us sort of form and shape that thought process. Diana Gray comes to mind immediately when I was thinking about the homeless, what we had thought about for the homeless initiative. So we certainly want to follow up with you all on that as well.
okay. All right, I think that covers number 5 that's on the agenda. one last question. Is there anything else anybody wanted to make mention? All right. Nothing else, we'll move on to item number 6. And it is to approve the minutes from the February 6th, 2023 regular meeting.
Open motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Moving on to item number 7, action items. This is for resolution number HATC 2023-04, and this is to approve and authorize the Travis County Facilities Corporation to approve the Frontier Valley apartment project and other matters in connection therewith. And that is tied to item number 3 that was on the agenda, right, where we, Mr. Howard made mention of there was an act for us to, for public hearing regarding resolutions. HATC 2023-04.
Right, because the facilities corporation is not included, but we, and again, speaking with the attorney, the understanding is, and his current interpretation that both entities need to approve the document, so you'll see that going forward, that we'll have a dual sort of posted item, yeah, on both agendas.
Nominating all for motion to approve resolution 2023-04.
One second. In favor? Let's move on to item number 8. The CEO, Executive Director report.
Yes, we'll start with affordable housing programs, and then starting with the 30-day summer. I did?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Amy about
Yes, I did.
Thanks,
I looked at you and said it wrong.
Hi, I'm Victoria Perez. I work with Christina. I'm the housing manager. We just brought on a new social worker, Olivia. She started on Monday on April 3rd. And she will be conducting home visits with the COC clients and assessing the needs this year for what their needs are. We're sending out a survey and to the COC clients, and hopefully we'll get some feedback from them to assess what their needs are. And then she'll be meeting with the clients more one-on-one. And in regards to the HCV audit, that just started Monday and it ended yesterday, and it went very smoothly. We're going through the wait list currently to house the NED client and the mainstream clients, and we contacted BUP yesterday to obtain more referrals for more clients for that program.
We also onboarded a new inspector since we last saw you guys. We came on the 20th, and that's been seamless. That's going well.
How long is the wait list?
We have 472, so we had 500, and then I've been sending out offers, so I think it's 472.
We are having trouble getting it.
No, actually, out of 36 offers that I sent, I believe only 8 so far I have not been able to reconcile, and everybody else is able to come on. So the staff is already working with orientation and vouchers, and it's at this moment for those.
So how many clients is Olivia targeting to visit?
74.
And that's identified because of where they are, because
They're part of the continuing care grant,
the continued.
continuum of care.
And then as a result of needs assessment, she'll figure out who needs what.
That's correct. Yes,
So it may not be 74 weeks.
correct. She's definitely going to reach out to all.
Right, of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else? I know someone asked when she said PUP, someone. Did anybody need a further explanation of the situation with PUP or the?
We have, so basically we have 20, I believe it's 26 out of the 72. vouchers out, like either leased or looking. And we have been actively trying to engage them to find out what the issue is, and reached out yesterday again. So we're looking to get some more referrals in the next 60 days. But the issue has to do with the readiness of the families coming in through the CPS, right? Because they're CPS referrals. So that's where the main issue is. It's the readiness of the family being able to locate them and where they are in the transition of children, and whether that's affecting them to have their children back or not. So it's a little, yeah, one of those things we have to work out. But we're okay in the leasing departments. We're over leasing on the regular programs to be able to account for that big efficiency. But it's definitely something that HUD has spoken to me about specifically. So I'm actively, aggressively trying to get that going.
Any other questions?
Okay, we can move on to affordable housing now.
Hi, this is Carlos, from the Affordable Housing. Sorry, I didn't get well there, but, so we recently had a react inspection for, Alexander and Summit. We had a score of an 81. There's a couple of deficiencies that are listed, so we will be working that throughout the next 30 days. We also have an upcoming, react inspection for Eastern Oaks as well. So we'll be preparing for that. It'll be it's scheduled for April 26th. And then we are working on a foundation issue over at Baintown as well. So we're working with an engineer. So we're waiting to see what he's going to let us know and then go from there. But also we're waiting for approval from HUD on the new management company. We also do have the management company here to present themselves that we had talked about last time. So I'm sure they're already here. I see them walking around. But they can actually present themselves. If you have any questions for them, you guys can.
Great. Is that something that's particularly addressing the CROD?
Sorry,
I'm sorry. The folks that you're about to introduce us to are management over CROD.
they're gonna be over the entire portfolio. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
And what you were just reporting in terms of the recent inspection,
Yes, ma'am.
was that all 4 properties?
That is only for Alexander and Summit Oaks.
Okay.
That is it's considered as C Oaks.
COs.
Yes,
Okay.
and then Eastern Oaks is CRAD.
And so that's a major improvement, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How did you do that?
Well, with our maintenance tech, more than anything, they were able to pull this off really well. Now we are short one. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. But we just have one maintenance technician working for all properties. So he was doing his best, but he did really well. Yeah. Mhm.
The new onboarding inspector, is it tied to?
No.
Okay.
So so it's interesting, the inspector that just came on the 20th, he was with us for 16 years. And he came back to the position, so we're super excited.
Said he was just on a little vacation.
He was on a vacation, yeah.
Didn't come in.
No, I appreciate the report.
Good morning. Two items this morning, Eastern Oaks. We are working with our consultant to get continue to get this draw process, the THCA. Followed up on this last, again with the consultant, and she was being repeatedly locked out of TDHCA's processing system for being able to enter data. She spoke with her counterpart at TDHCA. The information was loaded into the system, and they are processing. Once that's done, still have one draw left and to take the remainder of the funds. But since all the information will be loaded in the system, that should be relatively quickly. Maynard Town, very briefly, our engineers engaged in working with the contractor and his other counterparts to answer some questions from the ESD, primarily fire department or division, regarding the capacity for the fire line and the design of the fire line for the property, the new development, and they are working on getting that resolved through ESD. At the same time, our engineer is working on an arrangement with the city that will allow us to go ahead and issue our notice to proceed and begin mobilization before that fire line review is completed, so that we don't lose any more time than we have lost as a result of this activity. So hopefully within by the end of this month, we'll have the notice to proceed issued and construction started. Have to answer any questions.
We're excited.
Well, one thing to tack on is you all can elect to do a groundbreaking if you like, or if you want to just wait for a ribbon cutting, hey, you want to. That certainly can happen at any time in the near future.
I say maximize both.
So, do we want to, so we can float some times around for you all, maybe about a day of the week or a time that may work. So we can follow up with a poll. But ideally, probably the next 4 weeks, we probably want to do something like that. Okay.
I think that would be great. I want to go back to Carlos for 1 minute. Didn't we have I remember receiving an email about one of the tenants.
Yes.
What was the status of?
So the 10-day notice of vacate already expired, so now we moved on to the 30-day notice of vacate. We're working with our lawyer, and so we're just waiting for it to expire, which will be the 3rd of May. So it's just a waiting game, basically. Once that expires, if she decides not to move out, then we'll go ahead and file for the eviction. Of course.
Yeah, but I'm excited about the Maynardtown project. I mean, that's been in the works since we've been here. And Robin's been there from the very beginning. So that's great.
We're having you.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, so, finance,
Good morning. So this is like the audit season. We just got the audit report for the COs finalized last week, so the report is released. And earlier this week, we had the auditors for the housing authority. They were here for their field work and they just left yesterday. So I will still be continuing to work with them to, finalize that audit. So that is pretty much what finance has been working on. We are two months into the fiscal year, and the financials on the report and the financials were mailed. I don't have anything exactly to highlight.
Okay. Thank you.
initial assessment is that there's no findings, no problem, no issues. In fact, they finished in record time, they're on site work, so they said it was very easy.
That's the feedback I got.
Yeah.
I asked.
Yeah.
I asked before she left.
That's
I
awesome.
was like, how did we do? She goes, I didn't have anything.
Yeah, that's great. Good job. Great.
Yes.
Okay, so this is broken down as usual between HR compliance and best practices and organizational development and other issues. We are still, it's basically ready to go. Present to you the revised personnel policy manual. That will happen by next board meeting. At the time I put this together, I was working on some new employee onboarding. They were pretty much wrapping that up. And then continuing with our plans for our training and organizational development events and scheduling. And we mentioned the staff additions that relates obviously to the onboarding. We do have more training and development programs planned for the year, and that's not even referring to the community HATC and the community series. We're also working on website upgrades, the general redesign of both the HATC site as well as the foundation website. And we actually have separated out basically everything from the SHFC content on the HATC site and created a separate SHFC website, which is going really well. And so that's all I have for that. And then I'll go right into the foundation as well. And once again, mention the HATC and the community series. We've already discussed that, so not much more to say on that. We do have we're engaged in a collaborative effort with the public library. And I believe this has been mentioned to you before. We have secured 50 brand new, unused, fully loaded Dell Chromebooks. They're all sitting in my office, and we are in the middle of inventorying those and tagging them. And those are available for distribution to our voucher holders and our property residents. So I'd love to get those out as soon as possible, and that's the plan. So it's a great thing that Austin Public Library has agreed to partner with us on that. And so they're also providing digital navigation services, training, that kind of thing for voucher holders and residents. Yes, sir.
Do you have any accountability for, 2 years down the road, we're just gonna give them to them? And
Well, it's,
no return of nothing of that nature?
I'm not going to get out there and advertise this, but they actually don't need them back.
Okay.
But we are supposed to report any damaged, as if we will get all the information. I doubt it, but if there's a unit that's damaged, we have to record that and submit it. But at the end of the day, we do not need to give these back to the library. So, so there's that. I mentioned earlier, the Amplify Austin Day, probably going to total out to about $1,500 raised from donations from the community, from the board. And thank you for everyone who did donate on the board, as well as staff. We are wrapping up the community spaces at the properties with learning hubs and computer labs. We've installed the computers at Austin or Alexander Oaks, Eastern Oaks, and Summit Oaks. And there's some pending Wi-Fi issues at Eastern Oaks that we're addressing. We're also stocking school supplies there. So that's going well. And we are in discussions on setting up rotating food pantries for later in the year. So
are the residents really using like the community centers like?
Well, they will be. They will be.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, we're fine tuning how that's going to happen. We are also, as I mentioned before, in discussions with a local organization that may be able to facilitate most of our service delivery through a partnership. And it's a little premature for me to say any more about that right now because we're just chatting with them on this. But
Just wait for your information. There are a couple of churches and organizations that have pantries also that are available. Churches probably from 183 and then Mount Zion and 13th Street.
Okay.
They have clothes and all that stuff that can be done, and then Saffron Truck operates a free meal program each day, like 11 to 1.
Okay. Okay.
And there's another organization too, Mr. Higler, that I had asked to contact you, just to share some information. I think there's some plans to have the big pink bus to do green mammograms made available, and I just asked that I shared your information.
Okay.
So if you hear from.
I haven't heard from them yet, but hope to do that.
good to share with you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Anything else? Any comments, questions? from the board? All right, we'll move on to item number 9 on the agenda, board committee reports, I believe. Thank you. And then we'll move on to item number 10, discussion on this. Introduction of, Carlton.
Yes, you should have a blue folder in front of you. This is from Carlton Companies. As Carlos Guzman mentioned, we are still the approval for Carlton Companies being our third-party management is still pending, but we expect that to happen any day now, hopefully today. But it's hard, so you can't remove your mistakes. But we do have Larry Fraser and company from Carlton. I'm gonna have them introduce the staff. They're gonna share a few things, and then if you all have questions for them, certainly feel free. So I'm just gonna introduce Larry and then allow him to introduce the balance of the folks that are here.
Good morning. I don't know how much or how little you want to hear from me this morning, so stop me when I get out there. But you've got some information on Carlton Companies in front of you, just in a nutshell. Carlton Companies has been around since 1991. We have a development division, a general contracting division, an asset management division, a finance division, and a property management division. We represent the property management division. So Carlton has done about 25,000 units all over the Southwest United States. They
Feel
have.
free to come forward if you don't mind, so.
You wanna say it? Sorry.
Yeah, that's
If
okay.
you wanna say it.
People normally have a chair if you'd like.
Oh, that's fine. So Carlton Companies has been doing affordable housing since affordable housing came into Texas. Actually, our principal, Prentice Gary, did one of the first tax credit deals in the state of Texas. My team and I actually did one of the first RAD conversions in the state of Texas. So we've been doing affordable housing for a number of years. Personally, I've been in public housing in 2 large cities, including Austin, for over 25 years. So I have a passion for the affordable side of the world. I want to put that on the table and always have that. My team, I brought my executive team with me today. Laura Sullivan is our VP of operations. Annette Hardin is our VP of accounting and finance. And Ben over here is our most important compliance director. So we're prepared to step in, take management control of those scattered site units. We've done this, we do this all over the state of Texas. We work for multiple housing authorities today. We think we're going to bring a great deal to the table, both to the housing authority and to the residents on the property as we come in and try to manage these assets up and fill these vacancies, et cetera. Those things that you're already aware of. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jan. I'm one of the. Just curious about your history with properties we may know about that you're managing.
Well, we manage 600 for HATC.
Okay, I was gonna.
Yeah, so well, actually, we've got 280 under contract and just under in construction, but the other 450 and change we're managing now. So we do pathways at Chalmers South, pathways at Chalmers East, pathways at Chalmers West. We're under contract for Rosewood, and they just turned over pathways at Goodrich place to us about 8 months ago. So we have a good working relationship. And for me, I was director of maintenance there in 1988.
Don't worry.
So coming back and seeing this change is just exciting. I'm so happy to see it.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. And
You too?
hopefully things will work out as we.
There's no hope about it.
Well, eventually it will. I say it optimistically.
Is that all you need from us?
Well, if you want to summarize where you expect to make your mark first, what are some of your priorities?
Well, actually, we haven't had a great opportunity to get our nose up under the tent yet. So I know one of the critical issues for HACA for the Housing Authority of Travis County right now is the vacancy issue. I mean, we need to get the vacancies filled. We need to be generating cash on those properties. I mean, you know, we hear this word affordable, but affordable doesn't mean debt free. I mean, you got mortgages, you got utilities, you got maintenance, you got deferred maintenance, you got issues out there that have to be dealt with, and to do that, you need dollars. So we'll focus on vacancies and compliance when we come in the door. And of course, Annette will work with gentlemen here and sort out the financial side of the equation. direction. When we come in, we'll take control of compliance, we'll do the accounting, we're a full service property management company.
And you've been on site at this point?
We visited the sites. We haven't actually been on site at this point.
Okay. And any concerns from your visit?
There's always going to be concern, but this is not going to be nearly as bad as some.
That's true.
That we've stepped into.
I'm sure I can name some. I'm sure you
We're
can.
about to pick some properties in St. Louis. To give you an example, and they have no financials for the first quarter of 2023. So that's a problem. So what you have, the scattered site aspect of it is the most difficult aspect to deal with. From the business side, it's 154 units. It's, we're very familiar with that, and it's been run well by this house.
Yeah, I agree.
So it should be an easy step in and not a lot of challenges for us.
Well, we look forward to seeing your first report.
You get them every month.
That would be great.
So-
We're looking forward to seeing.
Thank you so much. Do you mind if we step away? Do we need to stay in for the rest of the?
No, you do not.
Well, thank you so
Thank you
much.
all for coming. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you all.
This will be the easiest money they make all day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us. All right, moving on to item number 11. Is there any unfinished business?
I can mention that the Commissioners Court is working through a short list of candidates for the vacant commissioner position. I'm not exactly sure how that's going per se, but I was aware that they had shortlisted the candidates and that they were gonna do interviews, some of them today, and I'm sure if all of them are gonna be done today or not. I did express some concern about maybe having a little more involvement in some of the shaping and forming of maybe the criteria or the questions and things like that, because I do feel that maybe, they probably need to hear from us a little bit more in terms of understanding who's here and who's not here in terms of the composition and makeup of the board, and I'm not sure exactly if that's process is what it should be, I'll say that, but nonetheless, I do, they are going to be going through that process. So I will make you aware of any update as it relates to a new commission.
All right, thank you.
And one other plug, if I may, so there is the Texas NARO conference that's going on in Corpus Christi, 11th through the 13th, and I put that only because I think it's obviously the opportunity again to meet fellow Texans who deal with some of the same things that you all deal with in other cities. To include Austin, obviously, in Georgetown and Round Rock. So there's some are in this region other than us who will participate. So if you all are still interested, let Madeline know and we can sign you up. That'll be, it's 11th through the 13th of this month, so it's not. So essentially, next week. Well,
There are some training that
Next
goes on there.
yeah, and there are some good training, so we could send you the link again or and the agenda. But it'll be 11th through the 13th.
And then there's Southwest RO, June 27th through the 29th.
That's correct, in
also
Albuquerque.
on the 13th.
That's Southwest NARO. So NARO, as you know, NARO and PATA are the two primary organizations that lobby for housing authorities. PATA is the housing authority, Public Housing Authority Directors Association. I'm sorry, there's another one called CLAPA, but that's the Council of Large Housing Authorities, which we're not actually a part of. But the two primary organizations are NARO and PATA. NARO actually has the state affiliates, and then they actually have regional. The regional is called Southwest, and there's 7 states that promote the regional. So we are involved in all national, regional, and state in terms of leadership and such. But they have their own conference in Southwest. But I would encourage at least, at a minimum, consider at least the state state conference.
And what expenses does just so that everyone on the board knows, what expenses does the housing authority cover for board members?
Essentially everything. I mean, you will get the government service, we use the GSA administration, government services administration rate for per diem based on whatever the city that is, and obviously depending on the length of stay. Then we would pay for the hotel as well. And then you get reimbursed. Well, we establish that rate and then you get reimbursed for those expenses. You have to bring in the receipts, that sort of thing. Travel as well. Obviously, if you, most days you could probably be driving, so it'd be mileage in that case. And then obviously the hotel and any other associated incidentals related to the event.
Is it
So,
worthwhile to go for a portion if you can't go for the whole thing?
oh yeah, so absolutely, I would suggest like the first day probably isn't the most, well, I'm gonna say this third day is not really that critical. Probably the second half of the first day and the second day, I mean, is where most of the bulk of the substances in terms of offering. So, I mean, you could certainly drive down and come back. I mean, I was considering that, I don't know, but I mean, it's not the worst drive. If you were so inclined, but it finds itself in Austin oftentimes, more so Dallas, probably more so than anything, seemingly in city, but Austin, a lot of times though, probably every third time it's in Austin, only because people like traveling to Austin. So, but they do sort of ask for a host site and then someone will volunteer an agency and then that's what they have to say.
And you're saying this is the one time for the year for NARO and the other organizations during Albuquerque in June?
So the National Narrow has 3 conferences a year, winter, summer, and then a fall. And then Texas Narrow will have, they will have one main conference, and then they'll have what they call a maintenance workshop or something like that. And then they do trainings throughout the year. Similarly, Southwest Narrow will do at least one main conference. So this is Texas's main conference for the year. And then they'll do other specific trainings. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll get back to you. Anything else? Any other unfinished business? All right, moving on to item number 12, executive session, and I would like to call an executive session.
Yeah, usually the
Both of you,
call for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to call from the business. All in favor? Aye. So,
Take time.
Mr. It is 10:55. Need to move my mind. Yeah. Thank you. We're gonna call the HATC meeting to order again at 10:27 a.m. And we have a roll call, please.
Chair Cheryl Brown,
Present.
Vice Chair Jimmy Paver, Commissioner Wilmer Roberts, Commissioner Jan Winnig.
She is present but stepped out.
Okay.
We still have a forum.
All right. Given that we have a forum, we have one final item on the agenda, and that is to adjourn the official HATC meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's it. Thank you all.